This is Natasha D'Souza reporting for SALT Voices, and I'm here at SALT Abu Dhabi with Jon Medved, the founder of OurCrowd. Welcome to Abu Dhabi, Jon.
It's great to be here, Natasha.
Good to have you here. Now, you and I were having a discussion that I'm particularly excited to deep dive into now, here that we're having this interview about giving the average accredited investor access to exciting deals, venture capital deals, exciting deal flow that typically they're not privy to. Take us through your vision for OurCrowd and what it offers.
So today it's imperative that all investors get access to venture capital. It used to be literally the most esoteric and locked down asset class. Unless you were a sovereign wealth fund, unless you were Mubadala, you couldn't access quality venture capital deals, and that's a shame. Because today's tech companies in particular wait so long before they go public. All of the value is created when they're a private company.
Agreed.
So how do you, sitting here in Abu Dhabi or sitting in Bahrain or in Kuwait, how do you access, or anywhere for that matter in the world, how do you access a cool deal? And the answer is you come to OurCrowd. We built a platform that hunts these future unicorns, sources these deals, we curate them. In other words,
so you curate, you do the due diligence, you
absolutely.
then put them up on the platform.
And then we put them on the platform. We actually set pricing, we lead deals. We then monitor the investment afterwards, so we sit on boards, and then we harness the energy of the crowd to actually help grow these companies. So it turns out to be sort of a virtuous circle where all of a sudden the best deals are coming to OurCrowd because they want the crowd involved, and therefore we're getting better results, and the results have been spectacular.
Okay, because in theory, you're increasing diversity, right?
That's
you're
correct.
bringing more diverse businesses and more diverse investors. So in theory, we're getting more information, more inputs, and then more informed deal flow.
And great investment results. I mean, look, we were investors in a company called Beyond Meat. And what's cool about that...
I tried some of that in Hong Kong.
It's a wonderful thing.
Ago.
If you want to eat something which tastes like a burger but is healthier for you, it's great. We were able to bring OurCrowd into Beyond Meat before it went public. And what's cool about that is that investors who joined us in the round, not through OurCrowd, but alongside of us, are people like Bill Gates. So all of a sudden you have a relatively small investor here who puts $10,000 into the Beyond Meat deal at the same terms, the same price as Bill Gates, and he's treated like a big boy. And what's so interesting here today in particular, it's not just about the small investors. Turns out that the family offices and the institutions also don't have enough access to this asset class. They have trouble with venture capital.
They rely a lot on middlemen, it delays the process. It's a nightmare.
First of all, these venture funds are raising on a 3 or 4 year cycle, meaning if you catch them just at the right time for a 3-month or 6-month fundraising period, you're in. If you write a $5 or $10 million check, it can't be too big because they don't want LP concentration. It's difficult. So all of a sudden at OurCrowd, you get the choice of either venture capital funds, and we have 19 of them at the moment and more all the time that are index funds that are focused on mobility or digital health.
And this is globally, like around the world?
Funds that are investing in companies all over the world, the best in America, in Asia, in the Middle East, in the region. It's actually very, very cool. Or you can choose an individual deal. So you like Beyond Meat, you actually invest in it when it's still a private company. Or the future companies that are changing the world. I'll give you an example of a couple. We have a company now called Site Diagnostics who are doing what Theranos said they could do, but these guys actually do, at least according to the FDA, who just gave them approval last week, 510K. We have a company called Alpha Tau, which is literally destroying 80% of the solid tumors in cancer victims within 3 days. We have...
So very diverse.
Oh my gosh, all over the place. Companies like Data.World who are building the world's biggest marketplace for data, where you can buy and sell data. And so these are companies that are going to be future unicorns. Some of them like Lemonade, where already SoftBank Vision Fund is an investor, except we got in earlier. And what you get is this ability now for the family offices, for the smaller institutions, even for the big institutions who want to spruce up their portfolios with more venture capital, which everybody needs today, to get into the best quality deals through an online platform which is global.
So what I want to ask you is, as OurCrowd, of course, you're bringing the supply, right? The deals. At the same time, you also want to create demand for those deals.
That's correct.
And I'm sure when you set out to launch OurCrowd, you knew the demand was there, that white space was there. How are you, I guess, doing your due diligence in terms of the investors you're bringing onto that platform?
It's really hard. We do a lot of KYC and AML.
Okay.
We are highly regulated because we're sort of on the cutting edge of the regulatory front. Because on the one hand, we're investing in companies that aren't public.
Yes.
They don't have a prospectus.
Yes.
We have to make sure that our investors are big boys and big girls, right?
Okay.
That they
Okay.
basically can handle
So
this.
you are regulated.
Oh, we are regulated all over the world,
Okay.
but not like a broker-dealer. In other
Okay.
words, we operate under a venture capital exemption, if you
Okay.
will, but there's a great deal of regulatory fiduciary responsibility, which we have to...
That you're subject
in
to.
the U.S., for example, which of course the SEC is very, very strict about this stuff, we have to make sure that we get a third-party attestation to the fact that you are an accredited investor. Meaning you can't
so it's not just you electing to
no,
say...
you just can't say, hey, I've got
accredited.
this money.
Someone else has
Someone
to
actually has to
Okay.
attest to it. Now, turns out that the chairman of the SEC, Jay Clayton, has been calling essentially for more democratization of the asset class, okay? More access for Main Street, because when you have 400, 500 unicorns that are now worth, they estimate between $1.5 to $2 trillion, and most people are frozen out of this market, we've got to open it up. And so therefore, we're hoping there'll be other platforms like OurCrowd. There are others that are different, but what we do is we do the best practice venture capital with all of the traditional disciplines in terms of due diligence and deal sourcing and deal management combined with this democratic access, and we think that's a winning recipe.
Okay, and here in the Middle East, especially you talked about the importance of KYC when you're bringing on investors on the platform. How have you seen that shaping up in terms of how many investors are you able to bring on board given the kind of stringent due diligence you do?
We have 40,000 investors on the platform at the moment,
Okay.
and we hope to grow to 400,000 or 4 million. I mean, right now our estimates are...
I mean, in the Middle East
In the
alone.
Middle East, we have probably all told about 5,000.
5,000?
Yeah,
Okay.
but the reality is that this is just the tip of the iceberg. When you think about how many people have the criteria, and basic criteria, certainly U.S. is $1 million of net worth outside of your primary dwelling, or $200,000 of annual income. And we estimate when you look around the world that there could be as many as 100 million households, maybe more, okay, who meet this criteria. And yet, less than 1%, far less than 1%, have ever made a venture capital investment. So it's a huge greenfield, wide open opportunity to bring these people in, which will bring more capital. But the most important thing is not the capital, it's the energy and the contacts. Because remember, we're investing in startups. It's not like the same as buying a Google or an Apple stock and watching it go up or down.
Okay.
You have to get involved, right? In other words, the difference between smart and dumb money in venture capital is dumb money thinks the work's over once you wrote the check.
So investors in OurCrowd, the ones who use OurCrowd, are meant to be active, are expected to be active?
Well, not expected. You don't have to.
Okay.
But they often are because they want to help their companies. And you can help your companies in so many different ways.
True.
I mean, just even posting company news on your social media, on your Instagram or your Facebook, your Twitter, your LinkedIn, that's useful. Getting a bunch of likes.
Especially depending on who does the posting, the social
that's
proof.
Right. If you're an influencer, we want
comes
you.
with it, right?
But it's not just that. It's like my cousin just graduated from MIT and he's looking for a job. We want that kid. Okay, my next door neighbor, he works for a family office and they're looking for investments like this. You make the introduction. My old business associate, he runs a business which is distributing medical products locally. He's looking for a hot new product. So you begin to realize the inherent power in this crowd of 40,000 really well-connected people. And when you put that behind the startups benefit greatly. And what that does is it creates, again, a virtuous cycle where the good startups say, you know what, I want some of that. Okay, I'm not going to give them all of my round.
Right.
I'm going to traditionally go to the leading funds, and that's why we invest alongside Sequoia or SoftBank or others. But they're saying, you know what? Let's have the crowd get a piece of this because these people can really help us grow.
And I can see how, in the long term, because of course, venture capital in the United States or in Europe, of course, is different in terms of its savvy, its experience, its legacy compared to, venture capital here, typically investors here. So I can almost visualize there being a cross-pollination through a platform like OurCrowd where you start to see some of that savvy percolate into other investors too, right?
Very
in other
true.
parts of the
I mean,
world.
look, we're spending a lot of time on investor education.
Okay.
We have hundreds of meetups all over the world. We have an annual summit which has almost 20,000 people register. We bring hundreds of companies to meet, and we teach our investors. We have webinars about what's a term sheet. I mean, how many of your viewers know the difference between preferred and ordinary stock, really? And what anti-dilution protections can be, and the difference between a full ratchet and weighted. These are all this sort of esoteric venture capital, jargon, which most.
So you are leveling the playing field, like bringing everybody up on the same.
Big time.
Amazing speaking with you, Jon. Thank you for being with us today.
A pleasure.
I have loved,
Natasha.
I think, the OurCrowd concept that you shared with me, and I'm actually going to get onto the platform
Thank you
and
so
find
much.
out a little
See
bit
you
more
at
myself.
OurCrowd.com.
Thank you for being with
pleasure.
us. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.